There
Oh,
we go.
Now do you see it?
yes.
Okay,
Terry,
That's how you dress in Antarctica? Wow.
right.
Terry, I didn't know you could do moves like that.
Yeah. I took my motion sickness pills first. So my brother, when you basically have to go to Buenos Aires to get to Antarctica, down to Ushuaia. And so I told my brother, I said, well, I'm going to go a day early because I really want to see tango. And, you just see it in other places, but I've never been to Argentina. And so, we went to tango. We went to tango the day we arrived. And, tango doesn't start till like 10:30 at night. And so I told my brother, I said, I'm breaking all my rules and I'm taking a nap because I will never make it until 10:30 at night. And it doesn't get done until midnight. But the nice part about that was that then, by the time we got home and got to bed, the next day our clocks were all reset. And so
Oh.
so we didn't really have much in the way of jet lag, which was really wonderful. So maybe there was a hidden lesson there to stay up until midnight the day you arrive, which is really hard to do. But anyway, it was very fun. How do I advance my, see?
There we go.
That's it.
Ah,
It's going through it.
yeah.
Okay. Now I don't know how to back up.
Well, let's just go from here.
Okay. Oh, we're way into it. Oh, brother. Okay, well,
Can't you control it from your left and right arrows?
slideshow.
Oh, back, yeah.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's a way to make it,
Well, it's on medium speed, so move it to slow speed. That's one thing. And then,
well, it'll loop around and I'll start it over again.
okay.
This is a sweet gal from Tasmania. Her name is Bree, that we met on the ship, and she's quite adventurous and accomplished trekker. And this was in one of the zodiacs. We just zodiaced right up onto an ice sheet, which was like, okay, we're gonna be able to get off of here. I don't really like slideshow because it goes too fast. But anyway, in Newfoundland, I talked about how like 90% of the iceberg is underwater. And how, so you have to be super careful around them. And we did get to kayak. I kayaked, I think 6 times. These are Gentoo penguins and they're sitting on their eggs. The Gentoo penguins have that little white patch above their eye.
Oh.
And this was look in a I think this was at Port Lockroy where the post office is, just looking out a window, kind of a nice view from their cabin. And these are more Gentoo penguins. We saw 3 types of penguins: Adelie, Gentoo, and Chinstrap, and I'll point them out when we get there. We also were able to make 3 continental landings, which was really nice. To step on the continent 3 different times. All the reflections were really beautiful. We got so lucky. The weather from almost every day was right around 4 degrees Celsius, which is 39 degrees here. And so it was like this morning it was 41. So it wasn't nearly as cold as we were expecting it to be. I have to go back and look at what this letter F was etched in a rock, and I'm trying to remember the history of it. But we were the only zodiac that found it. And it has a history from prior expeditioners, like, from the 1800s. Okay, these are the chin strap penguins. As you can see, they have the little dark hair strap around their chin. That prior picture, those birds irritate the heck out of the seals. They pick at the gunk between their toes, and they can create sores on the seals' feet. So the seals are always trying to get them to go away. This was our route. So we went through South Shetland, we went through the Drake Passage, and then over to the Antarctic Peninsula. We're gonna start over.
And then we started dancing.
And I'm gonna show you a video that they sent us, but anyway, as I said, I really wanted to see a tango show live, and so my brother and I went to a tango show, and it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of, it was crowded. But this was flying from Buenos Aires to Ushuaia, so over the Andes. And it was so beautiful. And Ushuaia is considered the end of the world. My brother had a cornea transplant about 5 days before we left. So that's why he has a black eye. So we spent 2 days in Ushuaia. They like you to get there early, so that way if there's any flight snafus, you don't miss your cruise. And this was the cutest dog. And when he put his paws up on that rail, he was taller than my brother, and my brother's like 6'4". And so I had to take a picture because and these are the ships in the port at Ushuaia with all the mountains in the background. It was really a beautiful, pristine place. And we just got so lucky with the weather. There was really only one day that was cold and kind of awful. People wanted to see the cabin. So the cabin had 2 twin beds and then a walkout balcony. And the balcony was so nice because you didn't have to, if there was something to be seen, you didn't have to go upstairs, you know, to go look out. And there was tons of storage all along the left side, cabinets, and then even closer to where I was standing is another bank of cabinets and a very nice bathroom for being on a boat. Because on a lot of boats, the bathrooms are really tiny. Like the shower and the head are all one compartment. So it was a treat, especially since I was sharing it with my brother. And they didn't skimp on the food either. So it's like, okay, yes, I'll have lamb chops. Are you kidding? So, and I didn't realize it till after I booked my trip that it was going to be my 7th continent. So, and I was getting back on one of the Zodiacs and I saw those signs sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I almost missed my opportunity to have a picture with a sign. That was my kayak partner. You get, you know, you pick your kayak partner when you first get there, and his wife didn't want a kayak. And so he was from Tasmania as well. There were a lot of Australians on our ship. So you get in a Zodiac and you Zodiac out to the kayaks, and then you have to get your butt into the kayak. And even worse, you have to get your butt out of the kayak and up onto the Zodiac. And so we all had a rule, you know, didn't matter how we did it, didn't matter what we looked like, you know, everybody got a high five when they got back up onto the Zodiacs. And the first day was the hardest, but then you know, develop some technique and whatnot. And they have all kinds of gear that you have to get into in case you tip over. You can see how calm the water was. So I used motion sickness medicine through the Drake Passage. We had 3-meter swells, which wasn't bad at all. They call that the Drake Lake. And then once we got through, I didn't need my motion sickness pills until the way back. But some people have like 6-7 meter swells, which are really awful. And sometimes you can't even stay in bed because you're just being, you know, thrown around. Lots of humpback whales. They were fabulous. One day we were out kayaking and there was a whole school of them feeding on the krill. And oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And you don't really realize how big they are until you're in a kayak, you know, 20 feet away from them. And they are huge. I like this particular iceberg because it looked like a whale to me. You can't really see the other end of it. I don't know. This is sort of cutting it off a little bit, but maybe because it's enlarged. So that's the chin strap again. And they either walk with a waddle or they do what's called tobogganing on their belly. And the tobogganing is super cute. This is the Adelie penguin, and they don't have any color above their eye. They just have a, you know, a black head above their eye. The Gen 2 are the most vocal, it seems like, and kind of inquisitive. Because of the avian bird flu, you have to keep your distance. So there's the whale in a kayak, and it's like, Okay, who's gonna win this one? But nobody tipped over. It was fine. The whale knows where you are. They put up flags when you go on a landing, and you have to stay, within the flags because, well, for safety reasons and also to stay away from the penguin colonies. Hopefully I'll show you a little.
Wow.
Icebergs. I love the icebergs. I'm just kind of like, this is
Oh.
one of my favorite things.
That looks like a fist.
I know, doesn't it? Those are the little chin straps. Oh my gosh. They make these highways so that they can get around. And all that brown stuff is poop. And so, but they all sort of coexist. And they make the highways and that so they can get around, and then sometimes they'll get off the highway and toboggan around, and they were so fun to watch. And hopefully I'll be able to play a couple of videos that works. But there's just like thousands of them in their colonies. And they typically mate for life, and they come back to the same place and find their mate each year. And it was, the thing about it too that was so striking to me was how quiet it is. There's no noise. There aren't any cars, there aren't any planes, there's just no noise except for the sound of icebergs calving or avalanches on the continent, which is really unique. Is this where we started? There's
No.
the jelly.
Further
They're
on.
so cute. I was in love with the penguins. One of the things, because of the avian bird flu, when we first got there, we all had to vacuum our clothes and our boots and everything that we might wear on a landing.
Oh.
And then you were not allowed to put anything on the ground. So you couldn't sit on the ground. This is a sun halo. And I think it's the first time I had ever seen one. Can you see that halo around the ring?
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Ooh.
we saw it again in the afternoon when we were out in our kayaks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so striking to me.
Mhm.
But then somebody posted on Oregon, there's like Where Am I in Oregon Facebook page where people put just stunning photos. And somebody posted a sun halo the other day, and I thought, okay, I guess they have them here too. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can show you. We'll see if this will cooperate. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Let me try and share my screen again. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, penguins on the highway.
So the penguins themselves create these highways?
Yes, they create the highways. And so these are the chin straps. And so we were there in November and till December like 15th. And so very early in the season. The later it gets in the season, the more everything's covered in brown. And so it's not as pristine looking. I prefer this color. And I'm going to see if I have another video here. I don't know why it's being so finicky this time. Try this one. Oh, I wonder if the toboggan one. What are you guys seeing right now?
That's a picture of the penguins on the highway.
Oh, okay. All right. something really weird. Okay, now I'm going to go to. Okay. So let me try and share this screen. I don't know how to switch screens, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Boy, I would not want to be somebody who has to. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, do you see that?
The vacuum cleaner, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was our first day on the boat where we got to vacuum all of our gear. This was our medic. And so this was the boat. It's called the Sylvia Earle, named after a woman explorer. And interestingly, the majority of our expedition leaders were women. And our main expedition leader was a woman. Her name's Flo, and she's been doing expeditions to Antarctica for decades, and she was fascinating.
Terri, could you make it go full screen?
Oh yeah, how do we do that? Let's see.
Bottom right, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, does that help?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That, now it's gonna go. So this was at Deception Island. And I don't know that this is in order of where we stopped. People submitted their favorite photos and then they created this collage slideshow for us.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so, but you can see how it's hot, and we're all like, we have on 3 layers of wool and we're peeling off our clothes, and the weather was just amazing. I don't know how we got so lucky, but I'm glad we did.
Wow.
But we
Probably
went to a
climate change.
Yeah, yeah. But we went to let's see, I think we had about 14 landings. We decided to not do the Falkland Islands because it's further, it's like the opposite direction of Antarctica when you leave Ushuaia. And I wanted to have enough time in Antarctica that if we had to come back early because of storms, we would not, we would still have several days. And we did have to come back early one day early. So I was glad we had 8 days there, which was, and it really was, I could have stayed longer. There were some people there with some really nice cameras.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. The mountain ranges were beautiful. And there were so many different types of albatrosses and petrels. I don't know, like probably a dozen different type of petrels. Elephant seals, crab eater seals, Weddell seals, leopard seals, humpback whales, and a couple types of dolphins. One of our guides is a musician, so he was our entertainment several nights, which was kind of nice. Those were the snorkelers. They were heading out to snorkel. My brother did the snowshoe package and I did the kayak package. These were the snowshoers. They were all roped together. They looked like little ants on the hill from down in our kayaks. And of course, I was nervous about avalanches. Like, okay, be careful up there, Steve. So the penguins really just, they go through the water like dolphins. They are so fast. And they come, you know, they'll fly out of the water and then go back into the water. And they're fascinating to watch. Those are Gen 2s, and that's a Gen 2, but you can see how they just are flying and they're so fast. And that's the chin strap. And those are the snowshoers. And more kayaking. So there, somebody had an underwater GoPro going on.
Ooh. Oh,
Yeah, the birds were really beautiful. And there was malachite and lichen on the rocks that they would feed on.
Nice. Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's a snowshoer way up high. And sometimes when you would be kayaking by a little iceberg, all of a sudden out of nowhere, a penguin would just jump right up on the iceberg and it would be startled to see you and you would be startled to see it. And it would immediately disappear before you even have time to grab your camera. I loved all the reflections. You know, the water was so clear. I think the warmest it got one day was 8 degrees Celsius. I don't know what, it was 9 degrees when we were in Dolman Bay. You're only allowed to have 100 people at a landing at a time. And so if you are ever thinking of going to Antarctica, be really aware of what size boat you would want to go on, because the more people on the boat, the fewer times you get to do a landing. So some of the big cruise ships, somebody was being silly, I think those were the overnight campers. You don't get to do any landings at all. The ships that have like 300 or people or so, you know, you go out in shifts. So you might only be able to do one landing a day. You can zodiac around, but you can't land, you can't step foot on ground. And so our ship had, well, we thought it was going to have about 140 passengers. We ended up we only had 85. I mean, we were so lucky in a lot of ways. And there were 87 ship crew and 20 expedition leaders for 85 people. So we
Wow.
really got good care, good treatment. There were 45 Australians, 4 Canadians, 1 German, 1 from Ireland, 10 from the UK, and 24 from the US. Quite an interesting group. Everybody, all of the lectures and everything were in English. There's that sun halo again. Some people liked to submit pictures of themselves for some reason. Oh gosh. And when you would, you know, you'd break off a piece of ice or sometimes there would just be ice floating, you know, full of air bubbles and crystal clear. They had trekking poles for everybody. So that was nice. And then they provide your boots and they come up, you know, up to your knee. And then the parka with the parka liner. And if you kayak, they provide your dry suit. They're so cute. They're so vocal. Those girls were doing snorkeling, but it didn't look like they were geared up for snorkeling. So I didn't do the overnight camping, but they were going overnight camping. There's never really any night. It doesn't get dark. But that I wasn't, yeah. No, thanks. Somebody must have been playing with
Yeah, filters.
yeah, their filters. Yeah, there's a seal.
Oh,
Great photo, huh?
Oh,
So there we are getting into our kayaks. That was the worst day. That was and it was actually kind of nice because it snowed when we were out in the kayak. So it was really nice to get some cold weather since we were all prepared for it. I did not do the polar plunge, but obviously several people did. So that coldest day, it got down to 2 degrees, which is 35. And foggy and some snow.
ooh.
It's still not bad. Isn't that beautiful? Look at all those penguins. They're just so cute. We hardly, every once in a while, we would see another ship, but not too often. And the ships all coordinate amongst themselves so they don't go to the same place. There's a penguin highway. Because if you can't all go to the same place because you can't all be on land. That's a boot cleaner that a bird seemed to be taking a bath in. So we got to mail postcards from the Penguin Post Office, which was nice. And
So is this a British, right now you're on a British part of Antarctica because that post box was British.
yeah, and I think that really Antarctica is independent, but there are still some, different countries have some sort of research bases there.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. So we would have an expedition in the morning and then come back for lunch and then go out again in the afternoon and then come back for afternoon lecture and dinner. And I had to time my coffee intake in the morning to make sure that, I stopped drinking it at a certain hour. Some of the housekeepers would create cute little things out of towels, like that little penguin that you saw. There's the Adelie again. But anyway, that was the talk at the breakfast. What time did you have to stop drinking your coffee today? It's like, what time is my zodiac? Or once you get into your dry suits when you're kayaking, you can't do anything once you're in that. So you really, it's all about timing.
Well,
It's a penguin egg. Some of the birds prey on the penguin eggs. And the mother and the father penguins take turns staying on the egg to keep it warm and protect the egg. Doing a little waddle. There was a sauna and a hot tub for people who wanted to do that. So I think 20 of us did the kayaking and I think 12 did the snowshoeing and maybe 10 people were doing snorkeling. So there was lots of ability to get out and about, which was really nice. We didn't get around the Antarctic Peninsula over to the Weddell Sea, but maybe next time.
Oh, next time.
Doing some yoga. the guides would go ahead, they would go out early in the morning and go to the landing site and set the site up with flags to keep you within a certain, geographic area.
Mhm.
And they would also dig steps into the ice banks so that you could, get up the ice bank up onto the land. And that was probably the most treacherous part, is getting up some of those steps of slippery ice. Oh my gosh, that's a little penguin. This was the lecture room, which was also kind of the lounge area.
Mhm.
Our person wasn't that creative, but other people's were. One thing that was really nice, we just got, last week, we got the trip notes. So I think different guides each day take turns writing down a recap of the day. What we saw, where we landed, what was unique, some of the, birds we saw, or the types of penguins, and then also the historical information about different places where we landed, whether it was, we landed at Enterprise Island or Patagonia Bay. And so it was nice to get sort of all that historical information, but I haven't even really had a time to digest it, but I'm happy to share it if anybody wants it to read through it. This was an old shipwreck. That's a nice bird. Probably one of the petrels. I can't remember all the birds, but the guides were all really knowledgeable about what we were seeing, which was nice. And then they have a citizen science program on board. One day we were responsible, I participated in a little bit of it, but one day we were responsible for identifying different clouds. They also identified different species of birds, kind of estimate size of the penguin colonies at the different landing sites. And so all of that information is officially, used as research information. On most of the ships that go to Antarctica have a citizen science program. They all are or should be members of IOTA, which is the International Antarctic Association. And so they International Organization of Antarctic I don't know, travel, but anyway, IOTA has really strict standards on what you can and can't do, what you can take on land. They have been closely monitoring the bird flu and instituted restrictions on landings. And in some places in the Falklands, you can't land at all anymore, and the Shetlands. But those restrictions kind of ebb and flow depending on what's going on with bird flu. And they instituted the requirements to vacuum, shoes and seams in jackets, places where there could be particles that could introduce the bird flu to the peninsula. And a gal that I used to work with at Deloitte now works for IOTA, which was kind of interesting. And she went on the Viking River. Viking just started doing Antarctica, I think last year. They have a little bit bigger boat. I think they had about 220 passengers.
What was the name of your company that had the boat?
It was called Aurora Expeditions.
Okay.
And, I did Greenland with Quark, and I think Quark is a great outfit. And it was quite rustic. And I was younger. And when my brother and I started looking for where, who we wanted to travel with, when I found Aurora and I talked to the travel agent that we use, I just thought, it looked so comfortable. And so we booked them. And so it was and it honestly wasn't that much more expensive, if at all. Lindblad does a really good job. And actually, you know, most of them do a really good job. There's a wide range of, you know, experiences you can have and types of boats you can have and accommodations you can get. But the way it works is the expedition crew, you know, each year they apply. It's some sort of organized system. So you're not necessarily with the same company every year. But you bid on where you want to go, which weeks you want to work. And so anyway, so the expedition crew has a lot of knowledge about all the different organizations that put together or do these expeditions. And they have a Facebook group, which is great because so there's a group of expedition leaders, mainly women, who have gotten together and kind of created their own travel agency. And so they can help you find an expedition based upon what it is you really want to see. And when you want to go and what you want to experience and whether you want to fly over the Drake or whether you want to sail the Drake. And so because there's a lot out there to kind of get through to figure out what you want to do. Although you can kind of quickly narrow it down if you have time constraints. And if you go later in the season, so like I think maybe January and February, you'll see the baby penguins because they'll be hatched. But you won't see as much snow on the ground or ice on the ground. There'll be all the icebergs are still there. But when you go earlier in the season, it's much more pristine because nobody's been there yet. You know, you haven't had masses of tourists trampling the ground, and the penguins are just coming back, starting to build their nests. They build their nests out of rock. And it was so funny to watch them. Look at all those little highways. It was so funny to watch them because one penguin would leave to go get rock and another penguin would come over and take a rock out of that penguin's nest and take it back to its own nest. And it was very funny to watch them. And they aren't particularly social beings. They aren't particularly social amongst themselves, like they don't take care of each other's kids and stuff, you know, baby penguins and stuff like that. But they do typically, you know, they come back and find the same mate year after year. And so and they come back to the same colony year after year. But they're not you know, they really aren't, you know, like they don't have their club, you know, or their clan or their village or whatever. But it's really interesting to watch them. I really wish I had another. Yeah.
You know, on all the pictures, many of the pictures of the icebergs, at the lower part, the ice turns turquoise. Is that something like it's melting or it's colder, or is there something significant about that?
That's the underwater. So about 90% of an iceberg is underwater. And so what you're seeing is the part of the iceberg under the water. If that iceberg were to flip, which happens, it goes like this, and all of a sudden the bottom part is on the top and the top part goes under the sea. And you don't want to be around that iceberg when it flips. And also sometimes the really big icebergs will they'll like breach, so you'll hear what sounds like a gunshot, and you can just watch an iceberg just break into like two pieces. And there were avalanches as well. And one of the things that you have to be careful about with glaciers is that if there is an avalanche, or if a glacier sort of kind of breaches and falls off into the sea, depending on how much falls, it can cause a significant type of wave. And when I was in Greenland, one of the villages we were in had its harbor completely decimated on like 2 or 3 occasions from basically a tsunami type wave from an iceberg.
Mm.
Pat, were you going to ask something?
You showed, there were so many mountains. Was there talk about any of them being volcanic?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Hmm.
I don't remember them talking specifically
Hmm.
about that.
Mhm.
There were a lot of mountains. I don't think so, but I'm gonna look.
Hmm.
I'm gonna look. We did have one, we had like the expedition guides had like their own unique field. So some of them were, you know, whatever it is that study birds. Some were like knew all about whales. Some knew all about icebergs. Some knew, you know, some talked a little bit about, we had a photographer on board. So he gave a couple different lessons on tips on photography. And so it was interesting because they all kind of wore different hats or several hats. You know, they would run the Zodiac, and then they would run the on ground expedition, and then they would come and do a lecture in the lecture hall. One of the things that I really liked about the particular ship was that if you didn't want to go to the lecture hall, you could watch it from your room on the TV, which was really nice. And some people would say, well, you know, you kind of miss the point of, you know, being with all these expeditioners because you're not out socializing with expeditioners. But, you know, it's like you see them at breakfast and lunch and dinner and out on the Zodiacs. And so sometimes it's nice just to be in your room, you know, especially when we were going through the Drake Passage. There was one day on the Drake when I was not feeling well, and I had, you know, I was taking my medicine and wearing my wristbands and all of that, but I get seasick pretty easy. And so I was really happy to have the TV in the room to watch so I could listen to the lecture. But it was really, it's fascinating. And the people that are the expedition crew are all ages. I mean, you saw the pictures of them, you know, they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. There was one of the snowshoers was a guy from Canada who does sort of like extreme videography. And so he's a snowshoer, but he was in his 60s. So it's really interesting that, you know, just a wide range of experience, and all very passionate. Like they, you know, for several of them, this is their only job. So they'll work up in Greenland, they'll work in the Arctic and Antarctica. So they, you know, they go wherever the season is for them to get work that they need to get. But I think they get paid decent money because they don't really have to work, you know, they don't work 12 months out of the year. But they probably do other things as well. And then there were other people that were just really, you know, deep into the history of Antarctica and all the different expeditions and different, you know, different countries that have had a presence there. And that was interesting, and shipwrecks and all of those stories, which was really interesting. So yeah, I wish I had another cute little, whatchamacallit, video.
I just looked it up, and there's up to 39 volcanic mountains in the
Oh, good.
Antarctica.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
Yeah, Mount Erebus.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bunch of them. Yeah.
On the way back, we went towards Cape Horn because it was the weather was a little bit better there, so we were avoiding a storm coming back early. The other thing that they have learned is that it's better to come back early for the ship than to come back late. Because if you come back late, it has a domino effect for the rest of the season. Or it cuts the next group's trip short. And everybody misses their flight. And so then you're left with, 150 people
Oops.
trying to rebook flights. So now I'm sure that, I don't know, they probably, learned that lesson early on. So they will cut a trip short and come back early. And they watch the weather like a hawk. Because you can go into harbors and, you really have to know what the weather's going to be and how long you can stay safely and whether or not you need to get out of that harbor for the night. It's pretty fascinating. We had Wi-Fi the whole time we were there, basically. It wasn't strong enough to do anything with the cloud, which was fine with me, but my brother called home a couple times using Wi-Fi calling, so that was really surprising to me. And the Wi-Fi was free with this particular organization, which was nice. Some places, I don't know, I'd rather just pay up front and be done with it than being nickel and dimed every time you log on to the Wi-Fi and all that stuff. And this ship, even though it was very nice, it wasn't at all like pretentious or cruise liney like, we didn't have any formal dinners. We didn't have any, you wear your jeans to dinner. Even though there's, white tablecloths and all that stuff, you could wear whatever you wanted, which was really nice.
Well, sounds like a great trip.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
And when are you going back?
right. I do want to go back and do Falklands, but I don't know. There's so many places to see in this world.
Mm.
So what other adventures are you looking forward to?
I'm going to Turkey in September. So that will be interesting on a textile
Oh,
trip. And so, yeah, so that should be interesting. I haven't been to Turkey or Greece. So.
wow, that would be great. Well, I'm going to say goodbye because the handyman's going to be in this room drilling in a moment.
Ah.
So
great.
anyway, it's good to see you, and thanks so much for the
Yeah.
trip through Antarctica.
I'm sorry it
Yeah.
took so long to get all those pictures. I
No,
don't know what
no.
was going on.
No.
No, it was nice to
I'm
see
impressed.
somebody fighting their
Yeah.
technology.
Okay.
God.
Well, take care, all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Terry. It was
Okay,
terrific.
guys. We'll see you next time.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll see you.